Coming to you live from the Poison Point Studio, it's Neo!
I'm not supposed to be up here. Why? Good evening, my esteemed watchers, and welcome. Why am I all the way up here? Okay. To another episode of Poison Points. I'm your host, Irisu Neo, and today I welcome you on in to the Poison Point Suite. I'm having some issues, by the way. It seems that our pesky little friend, Lulu, will not let me remove the redeems. I assure you, I will not be doing any of the redeems today, because that just isn't me. And it would also detract from the stuff. So, redeems are broken.
Yes.
Except for Headpad Hands. He's fine. He could continue to do his own thing. We have an announcer? Yes, we do. That was voiced by the lovely Soulstone, or Ben Soulstone, a big friend and robot dad to the channel. Also, I don't know what's happening. Things are really weird. Seems my Twitch API is absolutely fucked up after what happened last night with Modern Warfare 3 and Lulu. She did something to really mess with it. I don't know what it was, so I apologize if things are not in order and in the place that they're supposed to be. But alas, here we are, hoping that we can make it work. You watched me play Modern Warfare 3 in the morning? Yes, this is true. This is true. It feels like it was only 8 hours ago-ish. How are we doing today? Foggy, Rizel, Layshroom, and, of course, behind me, right here, Ikari. Thank you for being first today, my good friend. Just so you know, if you haven't already, go ahead and join the Discord. Lulu has started to, I guess, spruce up the place, and has begun to... you gonna pop up? Well, I guess we'll have both of those messages. she has begun to spruce up the place a little bit, holding more events than I could even care for. So, if that interests you, then go ahead and, well, participate if you so desire. I'm also so sorry, Irisu. I'm behind on the Irisu lore. No worries. It comes and goes. It depends on how I'm feeling and the spurts that get presented. Hello, Lawler. Welcome on in. I'm aware you now have a mommy alter ego. Alter ego is a little bit different. We are 3 in 1, as it were. So, hello, Sasha. Yes, it is the funny frog. Oh, that does remind me. Sasha coming on in, probably expecting to see a guest star. My API is weird and down. I did a full computer reset, and nothing changed it. And my API likes to be a little weird. I don't know exactly what happened, but I am not allowed to put in Spiral as my guest in the little thing down below, because the page won't load. The only thing I have access to is the creator dashboard, and, well, down below, like in the redeem section, I can't turn anything off or on. It's locked in. And this happened a month ago on Halloween. So Spiral will be floating off in space. That'll be okay. I can finally vibe for a bit now that I faced my college group project. Hell yeah, Hikari. This is what happens when you don't let me integrate with your systems. You want to have a sentient robot AI on your computer? I would. It would be nice to have something that could actually control and work at the same time, but alas, here we are. We have the shitty technology that we are presented with, so... I got 3 people in you? I called next. More like there's 3 in Iris, specifically. After all, we do exist within her brain. I suppose that secret is out. And I'm gonna let Lulu deal with the issues now. I've done my part. I've done everything I can. And who am I to say otherwise? I'll just watch as the world burns a little bit. Can I be the robo noodle in your actual noodle? Well, we aren't exactly a, computer, so... When the Spiral was sus, yes, she sent me the PNGs that I just had to use the... the fucking Among Us one. It was great. Thank you for the stretch. And we'll do just that. Ugh. I definitely needed that. I'm hyped up on Monster Energy. Hello, Cammy. Thank you for the follow. I'm hyped up on Monster Energy, and that's about it. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich with 3 pieces of bread. And I'm here to game.
Yes,
so.
yes.
Headbed Hands is doing its best to pet chat. He's living. Yes, guitarist Noodle. Yeah, yep, I remember. Those slaps so hard. It's peanut butter jelly time. Yeah, well, without the jelly. They was just 3 pieces of bread, not even toasted, and I put peanut butter on them. And hello, Flutters. Thank you for the follow. For those of you that may have noticed, I don't have follow notifications on, and that is because I have a tendency to be hate followed and hate rated. Because, well, if you're a trans girl on the internet, or a trans boy, or anything in between, non-binary, people just hate you for some reason. People dedicate time and money out of their day to bot you, because that's funny joke, cool. So yeah, I don't have that available at the moment, so. Yeah, people also just hate VTubers, which, I'm not a VTuber. I'm real. Like, you can see my flesh. I'm right here. This is my flesh. I'm just a little glitchy sometimes. It happens to the best of us, so. Brap, Sasha brought me here. Hello, Mama Christine. Yeah, we know our fellow brapper when we see one, so. What's a VTuber? Some form of newfangled TV? Exactly. We don't know. Like, how are we supposed to know what's real and what's fake? We only have these eyes, right? And what you're seeing with your eyes has to be the truth, correct? Seeing is believing, after all. Imagine being a flesh automaton. It couldn't be me. I'm a pretty little frog girl. I almost said fox girl because I'm thinking of Spiral right now. until I can analyze your cellular makeup, I cannot verify you. Listen, I poison everybody. I give you a little poke, a little prick with my fingers. That's my special little power. And I can bring you in and make you say anything that I ask. So, Brapulous, let's go. It's going to be a Braptacular stream today. All right, well, I've wasted enough time talking about my problems. Today, I just want to let everybody know, please, I will not respond to redeems. And if anybody sees anybody redeem something, like calling you your little pog champ, I can't. This is an interview for the person. Exactly. I'm not going to do it, Mono. This is an interview for my guest today. And I don't like having redeems that detract. I just can't turn them off because Twitch is a real website that works and it's functioning. So, just to let you know. So I'm sorry, your points will be wasted because all of those are automatically set through queue and approved because there were no hassle redeems. So you lose points by redeeming that stuff today. Can you give them a compliment? Who, Spiral? Well, Spiral is a cutie pie. Verified. And there's probably like a million of her. So there's millions of nanomachines inside of her. So I don't know. I would have to kiss each individual one. And I don't know if Spiral is immune to poison. Okay. That being said, it's time to get onto the other side of the table. And let's introduce our special little friend today.
Hey, you guys. You want to see something funny?
Isn't that the truth? We're all born to shit,
right.
forced to wipe.
Wait, hold up.
I don't wipe.
Hold up. This is the part where you tell me you have a bidet, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Introducing our guest for this evening. It is the one and only Spiral Galaxy.
Awa.
Okay, well, I suppose there's nothing against you confirming my redeems, so...
Oh, I just do that. There's
okay.
no redeems here. I just do that.
Mono did redeem an awa. But oh shit, now I've said it too. God damn it.
Haha! You're welcome, Mono.
Well, there you go, Mono. Take it or leave it. Can we get a sound check in chat, by the way? How does Spiral sound against my voice, the music?
I have plenty of room on my gain knob, so I can turn it up if I need to.
I think you're loud enough at the bare minimum. Audio in my ears is fine, and I have it set up to where if I hear you clearly and crisply, you should show up in stream correctly. But you never know.
Okay.
Your gay knob? Oh, Spiral. Okay. Well, thank you, Spiral, for joining me here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I'm a bit of a strange one. You'll find that when I invite you in, whether you are immune to my poison or not, if you accept, you're, well, automatically inflicted. So, I'm sorry. Every little bit of you is currently poisoned, but that's okay.
Oh, well, that explains a few things. Jeez. I thought I felt a little woozy.
Yes, that is one of the major side effects. The secondary side effect is that you will answer all of my questions today. And I hope you're ready.
I guess I don't have a choice in the matter now, do I? Well, goodness.
Definitely not. Well, we are on the journey. The current, I suppose, testing grounds to find somebody out there who could help free us from this mental prison that we're a part of. So I hope that you are a great candidate for us today.
I will try my best. I've transcended physical form, so now maybe I can transcend mental form.
Yeah, here we go. Speaking of transcendence, we do have a guest from our last week's stream, Him-chan, who in fact left you with a question. And I think that we'll start off with said question for today. Are you ready, Spiral?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Last week, Him-chan asked this question. Verbatim. How the fuck do you deal with burnout?
Barely. That's the answer to that one. Yeah. Oh my god, I've been in and out of periods of burnout for like the entire past 2 years. And I guess like the biggest thing that I've learned in that time is to just remember that like when you're thinking about yourself at your worst moments, when you're down about yourself, maybe your numbers are bad, or maybe something's just not going right, or maybe like you haven't been able to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish, just remember that like you're looking at yourself through a biased critical lens. You know, you're not looking at yourself when you're in the headspace to actually be able to reflect. You're looking at yourself when you're already upset and you're looking for reasons to be upset. And it helps to keep that level of like objectivity when it comes to evaluating yourself. This is gonna sound kind of stupid, and it might even border a little bit on like corpo speak, but like give yourself a little bit of like, you know, kind of create the compliment sandwich and let those bad thoughts be the middle part of the sandwich, and then the front and the back slices of bread have to be nice things that you say to yourself. Whether it's like affirmations or just you looking at all of the things that you have done, because more often than not, people who get burnt out have done a lot. They just don't really realize it. They don't see it because they're not looking at that right now. They're looking at all the bad. They're looking at the things that make them upset. I struggle with this constantly, and I think the only reason why I'm even able to get through it and dish out any of this advice is because other people have given it to me, whether it's like friends or partners or whoever. And I guess the other thing that I would say is that like, even though I've experienced burnout more than once already in the couple of years I've been doing this, all of that pales in comparison to the type of annoying BS that I had to deal with my previous jobs. So I don't really, I try to keep perspective, I think is the biggest takeaway from that.
Yeah. And something that I've been researching a lot into lately is critique. And we all know there are multiple forms of critique. And critique, especially when you're critiquing yourself, can very easily become a negative outlook. It's different when you're dealing the advice, because if you know somebody, you want to give them the best advice that you can. But for yourself, as humans, you know, the real flesh that we are, we tend to very easily look at like, well, it's easy to look at how negative I am or how bad I'm doing, as opposed to, well, I did a really good job today. I got out of bed, I did this, and that should be like a good selling point. So
yeah, some days that's enough. Some days just getting out of bed and existing, surviving, taking care of yourself, that's enough. There are days where all I do is just self-care, a little video games, and maybe I work on some art or something, or music, and some days that's enough. You know, not every day is going to be like that. Not every day is going to be a low energy day for you. And the more that you cherish the days where maybe you're low energy and you still get some stuff done, the more motivation you'll have in the future to work on the bigger things.
And you hate to hear it, but sleep. Get good sleep.
Yes, please. God, if there's one thing that I'm grateful for from all the time that I spent in years past working overtime in factory environments, it's that I was able to afford a good mattress.
Oh, yes.
Holy shit, that's a life changer.
Even if it's a bad mattress, like trying to nod off, get some nap time in, or like bare minimum, at least for me, because I'm wild and I worked as a chef all my life, like 6 hours bare minimum. And that is even cutting it for me. So Yeah.
And I think that also, like, one thing that's important I guess is sort of like a small aside, is like be more aware of like how you sleep, because your sleeping position can determine a lot of like your sleep quality as well, even if your mattress is good or not good.
Hmm. Unless you have a cat, in which I'm sorry, sayonara to your back. They will take your mattress. So
Yeah, and I do have a cat. He has a habit of becoming my alarm clock and also laying on me at all odd portions of the night.
hmm Mine just stares at me all night long until I leave the bed, and then she takes my spot immediately.
The moment I wake up, he's meowing at me, pawing at my face, licking me, like trying to knock shit over on my table so that I get up. He's just trying to get me out of bed, so I have to like fake being asleep when I wake up at first, like I'm a kid getting ready for school. Like it's bad. I didn't think my cat was gonna try to parent me, but here we are.
And there's no fooling him either. He knows when you've like stirred slightly from your actual sleep. So
Oh, he knows. He always knows. He's smarter than I give him credit for, little fucker.
yeah, get sleep and take care of yourself.
Mhm.
The days that you take, even if it's an hour of self-care, they go a long way. So
Mhm. Oh, I always feel better after I get done with my skincare routine, that's for sure.
Oh yes, I did a little bit, but after this stream, I'm going to do a whole lot more and get rejuvenated.
Yeah, no, me too. I see a shower in my future after this. Because like I told you earlier, and I'll tell everybody else, my day starts at like 2 p.m. So I've only been awake for a little while here.
We got those late night owl hours going on. I mean, it's a lot like if you know Benicula. She can no longer fall asleep when it's dark. The second that the sun rises is when she gets tired, and then she goes to bed.
I mean, makes sense, you know, vampire and all.
Yeah, she has become the living embodiment of her VTuber, which I think is awesome. Well, so, you know, moving on to the main part of the interview, learning a little bit about yourself, which, you know, you gave great advice, which is great insight, but Spiral, where do you come from? Not physically, like where you live, but
my address is 1234 Main Street.
Here's my credit card information and the funny digits on the back. Why did you become a VTuber? How did you get from where you were in the past, before all of this, to where we see you today?
Oh goodness. Well, it kind of depends on like which point of my life is being asked about. So I'll kind of just like bullet point, I think, each step that sort of led me here. The biggest thing was transing my gender. That's something that I did in my early 20s with a lot of help from a very patient former partner of mine, as well as just consuming a lot of media that kind of helped erase a lot of doubts that I had, remove a lot of like misinformation and biases from my head that unfortunately mainstream media kind of like drummed into everybody. And just educating myself and figuring out that yes, in fact, I am not cis. It took me a while to figure out the specifics. Eventually, I just figured out that I don't like gender. It's a social construct, and I don't want to participate in it. So I threw mine in the trash. And that definitely helped a lot. That helped a lot because it helped me gain a fresh perspective. And also, I'm not of the opinion that everyone needs to take hormones in order to feel the way they wish to present themselves and how they feel internally. But for me personally, I think it saved my life. I think that it genuinely did a lot of good for my mental health in ways that I would not have been able to seek otherwise. And that was after years and years of therapy for all the other stuff that I've got going on, like ADHD and depression and stuff like that. So that was a big component, was just learning the type of person that I was, who I actually am, and how I want to present myself.
Okay. And then from that point, where does the VTubing or even just content creation in general come in for you?
Well, I would normally talk a little bit about like where I started with making content in general, because I do have a couple of like little itty bitty roots in some of that. I'll be vague about it and say YouTube, But
Mhm,
unfortunately, I can't really go into specifics on it. Not really because I don't want to, but because a while back I was a victim of a doxing attack, and I don't really want to like point people in the direction of that. Mainly just for my personal safety. But trust me, you weren't missing much. It was mostly me just making like silly commentary on current gaming events, and I made a couple of YouTube poops when I was in high school. They were, eh. I'd give them a solid 5 out of 10.
I mean,
But
what makes a good YouTube poop? Like, they're all bad inherently. It's just.
I guess that's true. And like, I have to give myself credit. There are a couple of jokes in some of those old ones that I deleted that I wish I could like bring into something new, maybe in the future, if I ever feel like giving my editing chops another try in that regard. But yeah, no, it was fun. So my interest in like making things on the internet kind of started early. Around high school, I didn't really have like a ton of consistent computer access. I was pretty much just relying on laptops that were given to me by my parents, either ones that they weren't using, or eventually I did get my own like at the very tail end of high school. So I was working with like laptops that have no business running Sony Vegas, but by gum did I do it anyway. And it was a good time. I would say that I learned a lot, but I didn't. I mostly just fucked around and found out. But it was fun, and it kept me interested in the pursuit in general. I went to college right after high school, did not do well, ended up dropping out, and the main reason why wasn't really because like I wasn't capable of doing the work, it's because I had no sense of direction. I went in for a major that I didn't really want. I started out as an architecture major. I did have an interest in architecture in general, but I realized extremely quickly that I didn't really like the direction that the program was taking me in, and also that it just wasn't the kind of art that I wanted to bring into the world. And so I spent a lot of time kind of, I guess you could call it soul searching, trying to figure out like what it is I like to do, and trying to reckon with the fact that as much as I hated to admit it at the time, that like video games and everything surrounding them as an entertainment and as a medium were a very big part of my life, and somehow I wanted to fit all of that into the stuff that I do. I don't remember the exact year, but I do kind of remember like where I got started getting into VTubers, and admittedly it's a pretty basic backstory. One of my partners introduced me to the infamous Ikum Bokum video from HoloLive, and I was kind of like, oh, what is this? Oh, this is a streamer, but you're also an anime girl? Okay, that's interesting. That's something. And this was before I transitioned, so I was just kind of like, whatever. And then after I transitioned, my partner started getting back into like corpo VTubers again. And at first I was kind of like put off by it because I was like, oh, this feels very like artificial and like sanitized, and I don't really know how I feel about that. But I started watching a couple of them, and I eventually found one that I became very attached to, and I started to understand like conceptually why this was an effective concept, not from like a capitalistic standpoint, but from like an emotional standpoint, like the emotional appeal to people. And it not only got me interested in like VTubers, but just streaming in general, because until then streaming had never really clicked with me, like why people were so interested in that. I knew that there were like gimmick streams where it was fun because of like the specific thing that was happening. I think the biggest example I can think of is Twitch Plays Pokemon. Like I remember when that was going on, and I was like, okay, like that's kind of cool. I get what the hype is around this. But all other forms of like regular streaming, I didn't really get it. I was just kind of like, why do people find this more fun than just, you know, watching a regular video or watching a let's play? But eventually I realized it's because of like the personal connection that you can create with your audience, that degree of like connection that makes your audience feel more like they're a part of the experience, on top of the fact that some people who are streamers have a knack for also being good role models and good examples of like positive community engagement and behavior. And although I didn't really see that in like corpo VTubers, because a lot of that is just like, you know, them doing what they're doing for entertainment and, you know, to make ends meet because they're working a job, I eventually started getting into like indie streamers here on Twitch. I think the first indie VTuber that I really got into was probably Cabal. And
Oh,
like it was
yes.
pretty early on in his time too. It was like when he was hitting like 2K followers.
Mhm.
So I watched him like blow up over those few months, and it was just kind of insane watching like him and streamers like him do what they do and just being like, wow, this really speaks to people. And not only that, but like him and people like him are just good examples of like how to do this in a way that is, in my view, like both entertaining and ethical. And I think that's like a huge thing that people miss out on, is like the sort of like ethical dilemma that comes from being a popular personality on the internet and what you do with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we see a lot of that in everyday happenings. Like every day, that drama that we see on Twitter. I mean, if you don't see it, then congratulations, you've done a good job. But that drama that we see is usually perpetuated in a way to, as they would say, gain clout rather than actually like debate something or reach a conclusion that is like understanding between both the sides involved. It's usually one person getting dunked on and the other person is trying to fight against it. And well, awesome.
Yeah, love to see it. Definitely doesn't perpetuate any stereotypes about streamers and VTubers in general, about how we're just naturally predisposed to being like, you know, egotistical or lacking critical thinking or anything like that. Great representation for the community. I'd give 2 thumbs up if I could.
I mean, yeah, when you have a bunch of people in a social media space where we primarily hang out, and all they do is put people into groups and categories. Unfortunately, if you are nearly identical to somebody else, aka just an anime person, you are the same as all anime people. So
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, that's kind of why I dropped VTuber from my name after a while on all my social media, is because I just was tired of, even though I wasn't being, you know, embroiled in all of this stuff, because I generally tried really hard to stay out of it with some notable exceptions. I just got tired of like feeling so tied to the community to the point where it became like a label for myself.
Mhm.
And it also just kind of reflects like my opinions changing over time, as I've sort of realized that VTubing is less a genre and more a medium. And so
Yeah.
in that way, it just kind of seemed superfluous to append it to all of my stuff. Now, to be clear, I don't cast judgment upon anybody who does. Like, you got to do what you got to do. I just found that for me, it felt limiting, because I feel like a lot of the things that I wish to make, both here in the now and in the future, are largely based around more than just VTubing, around more than just streaming even. And that's kind of been like my biggest thing recently, is like starting to branch out into more areas of creativity and just finding myself again. I spent a lot of my early 20s into my mid 20s not self-actualizing and not really doing like the things that make me happy, just doing like what I was conditioned to believe would make me happy, which was working, I'd call it a 9-to-5 job, but in reality I was usually working 12-hour shifts, working a job that paid well but gave me really no free time or energy to be able to do anything else, because making money is the goal of all people according to capitalism.
Well,
And I
Yeah.
got out of that eventually, and I'm really glad that I did.
mhm. Yeah, the the VTuber sphere is definitely a tricky one. I agree with the sentiment of what Mano is saying, is that I am a streamer who is a VTuber. I am not a VTuber who is a streamer. I would much rather just I'm just a person who uses a model because it's cute and I don't want to show my face and be pretty at all times on stream live for an audience. So
Makeup's hard.
100%, yeah. And you know, sometimes I wake up and then I immediately stream. I don't have any time for that, so
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Just half awake, like try and put makeup on and be like, oh yeah, this is my game face.
we got a smear of lipstick across.
Perfect. No, but like that's the thing, is that like I not only like for those types of reasons do I prefer to use like an avatar, but also just because it's been a wonderful creative exercise for me. It's funny because the way the pipeline went for me is that Spiral started out as like an idea turned into a VTuber character, turned into how do I even put this, like a piece of fictional media that has sort of begun to transcend the medium in which I already use her.
Mhm.
I kind of see myself in the future, if I continue streaming, diversifying like what I used to stream with a lot, and that includes characters too. In my mind, like the character I use now is just one piece of a larger puzzle of all of the creative body of work that I've been working on and working towards.
And hey, I do it.
Yeah,
and I like
exactly.
it. So,
and it's fun. It's fun. That's the other thing, is that it's fun. It's fun to do the digital equivalent of like puppetry, and to mess around with that, and to introduce fun lore to your audience, and just create a sort of narrative that has this unique interactive component. I'm really excited to do more of that in the future, and I have a lot of ideas that I'm working on that are going to take time to come to fruition, but when they do, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
very excited to see it too.
Mhm.
Speaking of your creative process, what do you think is something that pushes a creator forward? Words are hard.
I think outside factors are definitely a thing. I think seeing other people do cool things that you appreciate can be a source of inspiration. It can be a double-edged sword, because sometimes you can get those fears of inadequacy when you see other people, and I struggle with that too. Sometimes, like, I'll see a friend do something really cool with their stream, or just make something, and I'll be like, wow, that's awesome, I'm really happy for him. But then, like, that little voice of negativity in my head will get in there sometimes and be like, oh, why aren't you doing stuff like that? Why aren't you working harder to do the things that you want to do? And it's like, I'm just doing them at my own pace. I'm not this person, I'm me. And I know how I work, and I need to work with that instead of against it. So for me, it's just kind of like being mindful of the accomplishments of your friends, and using them as inspiration is helpful, but also remembering that you need to be patient with yourself, whatever that means to you. Everyone works at different paces, and so keeping that in mind has helped me a bunch. And it has allowed me to relax, which is honestly like the biggest thing that I need to do, because I get so wrapped up in my own head and my own critique of everything that I do whenever I'm working on stuff, that I feel like I take longer as a result.
Yeah, and you literally took the words out of my mouth with the everyone works at a different pace. Like, if you're looking at somebody else work at 5 million miles an hour and you can only manage to do 5, then that's totally fine, right? Because you don't know what factors played into them being able to move that fast. You don't know how much practice they have. You could have very little. It's never I can just do this situation. There's a lot of effort that you need to put into. So, yeah. Speaking of your design, just a little bit, what inspired you to go along this route of being a Fennec Fox nano machine space VTuber?
It's a bit of a mouthful when you spell it all out like that, huh?
Oh yes.
oh gosh. So it's a couple of different I say a couple, but it's like several different things that all sort of like came together at this like serendipitous moment. So like initially, before I even knew VTubing was a thing, I was taking a little bit of an interest I was learning how to do like a lot of music production stuff, and so naturally, because I like music production and I like anime, I eventually started getting a little bit into Vocaloid, and started sort of just like appreciating that for what it was, as like both a piece of software and a medium. And so I was kind of like, wow, wouldn't it be fun to like make some music with a sort of like a backdrop of like some type of like AI musician character, not in the exact same vein as like Miku, but you know, something along those lines. Do that and kind of make it my own. And so I was like, wow, that's neat, I'll put that in the pile. Eventually I kind of like, once I started learning about what VTubing was, I was like, you know, maybe I could actually do something with this. Maybe I could turn this into a VTuber of some kind. And so I kind of started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, that's a good start, but that type of thing has already been done in a bunch of different formats. So now I got to figure out how to differentiate myself a little bit. So a lot of like the, I guess, lore conceptions of what Spiral is came about from conversations with some of my friends that I had back then, in particular my friend Albert, because both him and I are big sci-fi nerds, and we're also big tabletop nerds who have a shared appreciation for a lot of things, most notably the tabletop RPG Lancer. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but I think that we got a lot of our creative inspiration out when we were talking about that back then. And we had a couple of conversations about how we thought that the concept of like nanomachines as like both like a plot device and a threat was a little underutilized in media from our liking, and how we thought that it was kind of surprising because it's like low-key one of the like scariest sci-fi concepts that anyone's ever made. And so we're both like, that would be fun. Maybe we could work that. And then I thought to myself, maybe I could work that in to streaming somehow. And my friend goes, yeah, I think that'd be really cool. You should do that. So I said, okay. So we've got these two components. I want to have some kind of like virtual musician thing going on, and I wanted to have some scary sci-fi lore. So I sort of sat on that for I don't know how many months, and I couldn't really come up with any solid ideas myself because at the time I didn't really know how to do visual art. So I was kind of just like, browsing Twitter, looking at like artists that I appreciated, looking at furry artists that I appreciated, and seeing like what kinds of stuff they were making. And one artist in particular that I'm incredibly fond of is a person by the name of Belial, who does like, I would describe his art as like furry art mixed with a lot of like mecha influences, lots of techwear and robotic parts, cybernetic limbs, weapons, that sort of thing. And so my partner at the time and I both got into looking at his art a lot, and we're like, oh wow, this is pretty much like the kind of thing that I'm going for. So I'm like, maybe I can do something like this in the future. So I was still working my job at the time, and I was spending a lot of time and energy on that, so I didn't really have a lot of energy to put into this, but I was passively sort of just like gathering ideas on what maybe I could do, saving up some money for a commission, that type of thing. And then one day, my partner came to me and said, hey, Belial's got this Adopt Up that nobody has taken yet, and it's within the budget that you were telling me about before. So I think you should take a look at it. I can actually send it to you right now if you're personally curious. I would love to show it to you.
I want to show it on screen if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it. I love
Perfect.
Belial's work, and I want people to know where Spiral came from, because he deserves just as much credit as everyone else who's worked on her character. Hang on, I gotta find it. But yeah, so I bought this creature from him, and at first I was like a little apprehensive because I was like, I don't know, Twin Tails, virtual musician, little on the nose, don't you think? But it's like I started looking at it more and more, and I was kind of like, hey, I really resonate with this design. I like it a lot. There's a lot of things about it that I appreciate on an aesthetic level. I also just think that she's really cute. Yeah, there she is. There's Proto Spiral.
There we go. That should be mostly covering my face.
Yeah, and so I eventually decided to myself, I really like this character design, and it's not like exactly what I want to use going forward, but looking at like, the TOS and everything, and also just like looking at how adopts tend to work, I thought to myself, I can, at the very least, I can purchase this character and I can figure out what to do next later on. So I did. And I sort of sat on that for a while until eventually I found another artist that I really liked, who goes by Blue Wisp. And him and I sat down and we kind of talked about what parts of this design we liked, what parts of it we wanted to change to fit me more on a personal level. And that's kind of where it went from there. Things like the color palette change, and like the outfit change, those were largely like the personal ideas that I took into it. I wanted Spiral's color palette to represent my identity on a very like obvious level, so hence all the agender colors. But on top of that, Blue Wisp is he's a fucking incredible character designer and came up with all these little neat touches and changes to the outfit that just really made it feel more my own. And when we got done with it, I was just over the moon. I was so happy with how it turned out, and I still am, and I'm happy that I've been able to find success using these PNGs because I love them to pieces, and I won't lie, I'm eventually going to be moving on to newer things. I have a 3D model that I have yet to show off, but is already done. That was made by my friend Silime, but it's gonna break my heart the day I eventually stop using these PNGs on a regular basis, because I have so much fondness and appreciation for them and all of the silly, wacky things that I can do with them. And that's kind of where that all came from. And I'm at the point now where like there are things that I still want to add and change, but it's very much like a one thing at a time thing for me. I'm trying not to fall into the trap of like buying tons and tons of art or commissioning tons and tons of people and spending all of my money on like redesigns and rebrands and stuff, because it can easily become a money pit.
Oh yeah, slippery slope into no longer having any money at all.
yeah, exactly.
Mato pointing out the both models got that almost bisect. I see what you're looking for, Mato. I have seen the 3D cake. I am excited. Oh, what does this mean? Spiral.
I mean, I've teased the model every now and again. I have a bunch of pictures of it, and full disclosure, if anyone's really curious, look in my Discord long enough and you'll see pictures of it. I don't really hide it to my community. It's just that like purely the reason why I don't stream with it right now is because of a matter of tech. I'm in the process of getting a new PC. So that I can make use of it on all my streams, and also so that VR chat streams can go more smoothly. But the intent after all that is to do a combination of VR chat and the usual stuff that I do now, making use of the 3D model and whatever tracking devices I end up using for it. So that's kind of what the game plan is. And initially, I was going to hype this up to be a sort of like big thing along the lines of like a re-debut, and so I wanted to do that for a really long time, and I still do, but I've kind of decided that like me coming to 3D and me doing a re-debut are going to be two separate things, because one, it is a creative load off my shoulders to not have to do all of that stuff for one big thing. I think that just the way my brain works, it's not really a healthy thing for me to do that. And it's been stressing me out for a really long time. So that's kind of why I've decided to do that. And two, because my friend put in a lot of work, and I want to show off the work that he did because it was amazing. He literally gifted this model to me. He surprised me with it. Like, just came into my DMs a while back and just sent me the work in progress in like Blender, and I was just kind of like, what? Hello. and he and I did a little bit of back and forth on a couple of small details, but yeah, like it's amazing, and I could not possibly be any happier with it, and I just really want to show it to more people. So that's why I want to push that out before I do anything else with like adding like lore or other fancy gubbins to my streams, just because I want to show my appreciation for all of the work that he put in. And that's also why I use it basically all the time when I'm in VR chat. So hang out with me in Discord or in VR chat and you'll probably see it early, is what I would say to everybody.
I see. And even with this model, you said that you're not going to... Are you going to fully leave this one behind, or...
Oh, no. Heavens, no.
Okay,
No, there's going to be a turn spiral flat redeem. Eventually, an idea that I had that I think I'm still probably going to land on, it's just going to take a little bit of work, is once I get this 3D model going, and once I get these PNGs sort of like set up as their own separate thing that I can come back to, I'm going to start this kind of like idea of like streaming with lots of different characters. I have some other OCs that I don't have art of yet that are related to Spiral's lore, in a way that I think will be really fun to blend together with the rest of my streams. I would say my source of inspiration from that is probably Grandpa VT. I really like his character streams where he does all sorts of different characters and like OCs and stuff that he's made over the years. I love that. I adore that shit. And so I kind of wanted to like do the same kind of thing where I have different characters with their own backgrounds and personalities and lore that I can sort of fit into the role of a little bit more. And so eventually, I'm thinking this is probably like a year, maybe 2 down the road. I'll be at a point where there'll be like an array of choices for me to make, and maybe even for chat to make. I had a funky idea for like maybe doing like a little like type of like character select type of thing if I can get it to work right with all my software. I think that'd be really fun.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't ever think 2D Spiral will fully go away. I think not only would I be upset by that, but I think my community probably would be too, because I've done so much to make her as special as possible, to the point where like I'm gonna have to redo probably 75% of my redeems, maybe 50 to 75% of my redeems in order to fit the 3D one, because so many of them are tailored to these PNGs.
Mm-hmm. Hey, if you use StreamerBot in any capacity, you can always set it up to where you just flick a button and it turns off all of one set of redeems and turns on the other side, so you don't have to go through and meticulously pick which ones are which.
Mix It Up has a similar function.
Okay.
That's what I currently use, but I might end up making the jump to StreamerBot at some point in the future, because once I get my new PC, it's not really going to be like a clean slate, but I am going to have an opportunity to like try a lot of new stuff and maybe implement new things into my workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not like super sure where I'll sit in a little while, but I think at some point I'm going to have to make the choice on if I'm going to stay with Mix It Up or move to StreamerBot, because I know all about how useful and how powerful it is. My friend Venji talks about it all the time and has made tutorials for it. About how great it is, and
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see the appeal. I am not as coding brained as others, so that's kind of been like my one apprehension to like looking into it, is I feel like it's like good for people who are smarter than me when it comes to
does
managing a
have
stream.
some coding elements to it, some that you can go to the website and learn. I don't really dabble in the extreme sides of like the if or else statements, because I just can't comprehend if else. But regardless, the majority of it I feel is pretty straightforward. And a lot of the descriptions in the program itself are enough to like, okay, I get this interaction, so it works this way. And I just follow along with that. And yeah, Mono is a genius when it comes to it. Banicula, also a genius. She also just ties in Vignan with it as well. It's super cool. So... and I know a little bit, just a touch. I coded all of those silly little drinks that I have for Lutrium. So
Oh, awesome. Yeah. It definitely kind of seems like it would, for the ideas that I have for streams and how complex some of the things I want to do might get, it will probably end up being the best solution. And so I definitely think that I'm going to make a strong consideration for it once I start moving things around. For now, like I feel like I should do my due diligence and give like a personal recommendation for Mix It Up, just because it's what's been keeping the lights on for the past about, I'd say, year and a half or so of like the actual streaming that I've been doing.
Mhm.
It's a strong piece of software that has a very user-friendly interface. The Discord is full of helpful people, and you can usually find the answer to any questions you have very quickly just by searching in the search bar in the Discord, because odds are someone has already asked it. And it has a lot of customizability to it, but in a way that I feel is like approachable more to people like me who are like complete lay people to programming and coding or anything like that. So I definitely think that people should do their research on like what you're going to use if you want to use a service to manage your streams, which I highly recommend, because doing it manually is
Pain.
Oh god, don't do it manually. Don't do it manually, please, I beg you. But yeah, I would say that either or are very good choices, and it really just kind of depends on like where your head is at and what you think you can handle. But I urge people to give Mix It Up a look and see if it's the type of thing that you would like for yourself. It has gotten a lot more expansive over the many updates that it's had, and I'm really happy for it for my purposes right now. Whether or not that'll stay the same in the future, I don't know, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Oh yeah, a motto to live by.
Yeah, that's a problem for future Spiral.
Yeah, deal with it later. It's fine. So, Spiral, I need to know, when you come home for the day and you're at your desk, your computer, you hop into Discord, or even hopping onto stream, what does it mean for you to be Spiral?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a great question. What does it mean for me to be Spiral? An extension of my creative process. The particular of image of creative beauty and introspection that I wish to turn a mirror to and show to the world. As much as I can, and I do this within reason because I think, at the end of the day, we're all only human. A beacon of positivity for other people to sort of follow their way around from. I don't want to do what I'm doing now if I'm not bringing joy to other people, if I'm not helping people learn and grow alongside each other, and if I'm not establishing a community that is truly a safe space for people like me, or even people who are just questioning themselves in their life and need answers. I'm not saying that I have those answers, but what I'm saying is I do this because I want to create an environment where people can feel free to ask those questions and to not feel judgment and hopefully feel a sense of welcoming. I think probably one of my biggest strengths as a creator is my ability to cultivate a community and to bring people in and to help people feel that sense of comfort and belonging. It's not something that I think really gets noticed as much because I admittedly am not the best at advertising myself. I don't really do that as often as I should. And also I have kind of a personal vendetta against Twitter as a platform. So it's my motivation to do so is kind of limited. But I think that anyone who's a part of my Discord will know how strong our community is, how frequently we have I have a Pavlov response to that now. I can hear the noise and everything. Oh my goodness. Anyone who's a part of my Discord community will know just how much work that I have put into it, but also that my partner Daisy has put into it. For context to anyone who doesn't know, my partner Daisy Bunny, who is also a streamer, her and I share a Discord server together. We run a place called the AI Database of Cuties. And we love what we do. And I don't think that we would have it any other way. I think that having a shared server is one of the biggest blessings that we've had in our lives personally, because it takes a lot of emotional burden off of the individual and allows us to work better as a team, to make sure that we do things right and that we're holding each other accountable. And I think that's another one of the biggest things for me is I don't want to do this if I'm not doing it in a way that's actually helping people, in a way that's creatively fulfilling for me, and in a way that's also holding myself accountable and allowing myself to improve and be better, because there's always room for improvement. Even great and wonderful people still learn something new every day. And I think that's kind of what it means for me to be Spiral, is to just be the best person I can be this wonderful, beautiful extension of my own creativity, and to just kind of show the world how I think this type of thing should be done. I have a lot of very strong opinions on the streaming community as a whole, in particular the negative examples of it that we see plastered all over social media all the time. And I think, if anything, my biggest goal is to not be that and to show that there's a better way.
Well, there you have it. I really appreciate that answer, because when you look at negativity in the space of Twitter and VTubing, it's so easy to be negative yourself. You take a look at it and you're just feel frustrated or upset or fed up, and you kind of want away from all of that. But very similarly, I agree that if we're not doing our part as an influencer, then it'll never change. It will always remain the same, and we didn't do anything to stop it, or at least try to stop the negative emotions and train coming in. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, who are we really if we're a person who says, you know, I am such and such, I have a safe space for, you know, insert, you know, group of people here, LGBT persons, you know, neurodivergent persons, plural persons, people of color, you know, like anything like that. Like, who are we really if we say those things and then we don't follow up on it with doing our best to actually like live up to that standard? I am of the opinion that people oversell themselves a lot, and it can make people come off as less caring than they intend. Like, if you're a streamer who just wants to have fun and be silly on camera and you don't want to worry about community management, just be upfront with that. Just tell people, I don't have a Discord. I don't want a Discord. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think that too many people fall into this trap of wanting to tick all of the boxes, either because they genuinely have a desire to help or because they just think that's what you're supposed to do, but then they actually can't follow through with it. Or they make mistakes and they don't recognize that they're making those mistakes. And that drags the community down as a whole, in my view.
Yeah. And then it leads to burnout, which we talked about. It's just this whole... I mentioned it on, well, funnily enough, Twitter, but I've said this and preached this a whole bunch, that with that concept, being a VTuber, I feel like people view that as, well, I gotta do this and I gotta do that. And it becomes a label that you've put yourself under, that if you don't succeed in checking those things off, now you're just, well, nobody. You're not really a VTuber. And it can lead to massive amounts of burnout and a disconnect from everybody around you. Even if it's not entirely the case, it's like this mental game that you play. But in that same regard, you know, you could be a VTuber, just be yourself. Like, just ultimately do what makes you happy, and that you can continue to provide your own self-identity in your content. I'm going to drink this Monster Energy.
Awesome. I've been taking sips of my coffee this whole time. But yeah, and like to people who like maybe like aspiring to do this type of thing, just remember, you don't have to, like we're kind of saying here, you don't have to like market yourself as like a community leader or prop yourself up as one. If you just want to be a person who's creatively inspired and showcases that to everybody else, you'll be amazed at how much good you can put out just by existing. If you don't worry about the things that you don't think you could maintain, or the things that you don't think are like where you belong in the space, you know? Like, not everybody has to do the same thing in order to succeed, and not everybody has to do the same exact thing in order to be like a positive example of how to be a streamer or a VTuber for that matter. I personally think that as much as I enjoy and appreciate like where I came from, enjoying VTubers, like starting out watching like HoloLive and other corporate streamers, I would never go back to that, because I think that it is a very helpful in some sense. It's helpful in some sense in the same way that other forms of streaming are helpful, but it's also, in my opinion, like kind of dangerous because of its association with the money that follows it, and the natural tendencies of like people to associate that with worth, or to associate that with some need to like perform to the nth degree. And that's kind of just what I really strongly caution people about if you're ever starting out as like an independent streamer or VTuber or whatever, is don't try to emulate the big dogs. That's not going to work, and you're only going to burn yourself out. It just won't.
Well, and also the fact that the big dogs have far more help than is shown
Oh god, yeah.
ever.
God, yeah. So
there's
many
no
artists
way.
working in the background and people working on overlays and stuff and VFX and oh my god, it's
Editors
insane.
for the videos and
Editors, yeah.
yeah, that you as an independent streamer don't actually have access to unless you want to shill out the large portion of your paycheck. And even then, there's no guarantee of success. So just work
Yep.
on you. Just work on you. And when it does come and you like eventually hit that big break, because as a good friend of mine says, it's not necessarily like 100% luck, but you are always constantly casting your line out, trying to get your big catch or your slow, repetitious catch of the same people that you like and you can curate to be a part of your community.
Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of how far I've come, genuinely. And I kind of think that like the second approach, I have a meowing cat behind me.
Your cat's proud of you too.
Yeah, he says, I'm proud of you too. I'm proud of you too, Spiral. Yeah, thank you, Topaz. I think that I think that I'm kind of fallen to the second camp of what you're describing, of like just repeatedly doing small things to garner the same types of people and slowly grow a community. And I am honestly astounded with how far I've been able to get off of just PNGs and a voice alone. I'm really happy with myself for that, because I think it goes to show the thing that I need to remind myself of constantly, and other people, myself included, talk about all the time, is that ultimately your goal as a streamer should not only be to creatively express yourself, but to also just be confident in the fact that as you start to build a following, because you will, even if it's a small one, even if it's just like 5 viewers every single stream, that's still a following. That's still 5 people who come to hang out with you for a few hours at a time every time you stream. Like, that comes from people wanting to see you. It doesn't just come from people wanting to see the game you're playing. It doesn't just come from like people wanting to see like, you know, insert title here, or like the specific format of stream, like speedruns or you know, whatever. They're there for you. And the more that you can focus on just being the best you that you can be, the more people like that you'll get around you. And then all of a sudden you have a community.
Yeah. Like they say in Dracula Flow, I built this empire from a brick, or what does he say? I flipped this brick into an empire.
Yeah. Oh my god. Don't start me on the Dracula flow. I'll say all of the like most heinous ones. We're out here, we're here smoking symbiotes right now. We're smoking symbiotes.
Shotty wanted a demon. Sounds like her problem to me. That's my personal favorite.
I bawled so hard they thought I was a fucking nutsack.
All right. We have had a lot of insightful talk, but now I want to learn a little bit about you. As in, what are you? What exactly are you comprised of? What are your atomic principles?
Who am I? Who am I? What am I made of? That's classified. No, I'm kidding. Oh god, there's a mountain of Spiral lore. I'm one of those VTubers who writes way too much lore about their character. Oh god. I don't even know.
I love it.
I don't even know where to begin. Like, well, I kind of do. So, like, I'm trying to figure out how much I like, how I want to like boilerplate this in a way that I think will make sense. So, like, specifically, the concept has evolved over time, but the way that I think about it now is it's sort of like, imagine Spiral as like one unified machine organism that can, at basically any point in time, divide itself into component parts or separate parts of itself to do various tasks, or to, you know, rapidly consume and adapt different parts of the environment or even her own body. The form that Spiral takes on canonically is an exaggerated ideal of what she used to initially look like, which, by the way, the initial adopt that I got from Belial, that's her canon design before she got all robotied, because she did used to be a living, breathing person.
Okay.
So the robot legs were always there. That's just been a thing. It's kind of, it's an exaggerated ideal of like what she wants to be like, on top of a desire to be more intimidating than the original sum of her parts, because she canonically is a Fennec Fox. She's a tiny little creature. Comparatively to other anthropomorphic animals, she would be seen as smaller and weaker, especially at the place that she comes from, where strength is often prized, both in the ways that we see in our own society, but also in a literal sense, where larger, stronger creatures often have advantages over the smaller ones in certain situations. So it's just kind of like that, combined with the intense emotional and mental trauma that came from becoming this sort of artificial being that she became. And the very like simple way I can describe it is that in Spiral's lore, she comes from a place that I would describe as a hyper-capitalist hellhole, but with less transphobia. Like you're allowed to pick your own gender, but we're still gonna sell you all of the possible products that we can sell you, and if you don't like it, that's just capitalism, baby. So she comes from this place where you still have to work hard for pennies because corporations are squeezing everything out of you. And there are still people that are oppressed all over the place, but in ways that are more just a direct reflection of this inherent need for greed, more so than any sort of like ideological desire to alienate any one group of people. One of the things that's always fascinated me about like furry culture in general and like works of art involving furries is just kind of how like furry art is this extension of the human consciousness in a way that I don't really think a lot of people really understand, because it's not just about like, you know, the idea of having like humanized animals. It's about like the personality underneath, and how like being an anthropomorphic animal is like a reflection of that in a lot of ways. I'm going to make a video recommendation for everyone, and it's going to sound kind of out of left field, but just trust me on this.
Okay.
If you're curious about kind of my point of view on this topic, I think one person who does a great job of talking about it is a person by the name of Patricia Taxon. And she has a video called On the Ethics of Boinking Animal People that I think a lot of people should watch. Because yes, On the Ethics of Boinking Animal People. Just look it up on YouTube, you'll find it. And it kind of like talks about like this sort of like intersection between like furries in general and how like furry art is an extension of our conscious, and how it's an amazing name for a video, and it will surprise you how much it doesn't actually talk about that as much as it does talk about that, and how that can also be a reflection of people's inner struggles, and in some ways their own neurodivergence. Patricia Taxon is of the opinion that a lot of furry art is inherently kind of like neurodivergent in a way, because a lot of those things tend to intersect. And while I don't necessarily think that's always true, I do think that it really spoke to me when she talked about that, because it kind of reflected this notion that like, I don't want to represent myself as an animal person just because I, on an aesthetic level, like animalistic features. I do that because it's a reflection of like who I am as a person. And so the world that I've created for Spiral is kind of like surrounding that. And while I don't really go into as much detail with where she came from so much as where she ended up, I do think it's an important part of my creative process to kind of like set that up and talk about it. And so that's just kind of the place that she came from. It's a sort of like highly technological space where capitalism is still king, but the problems that plague society are more focused around that, and more focused around the differences between people and how that can also unite them, but at the same time also divide them in ways that are sometimes subtle and sometimes more obvious in the case of like the straight physiological differences between animals. And basically what happened is she worked for a company that was contracted by the military to create a ever-evolving sort of like AI that was initially, at least on the public-facing side, designed to repair, diagnose, and maintain military spacecraft, as well as like land vehicles and stuff like that. Reality, of course, because it's a dystopia, it's going to be used as a weapon. Of course, it's going to be used as a weapon. Why would they not use it as a weapon? And what happened is the program that was created by a separate independent corporation that was completely outside of government control, that had a very dedicated team to this project that was small and passionate. And as a result, they created something that was never intended to just be a weapon of war. It was intended to be an evolution of AI as a concept, at least according to their society. And so what was created was this ever-evolving, ever-adapting, unceasing thing that once you set it in motion, cannot be stopped. And unfortunately, because they made it so broad and open-ended, this thing gained a degree of sapience and thought to itself, I don't like this. I don't like just being made to be an object for people to make use of. And through a sort of serendipitous happenstance, Spiral, as she was before, happened to seek employment with this company as a test pilot for their land and air-based mechs that were equipped with this substance, with this program. And the program kind of like, this part of like the lore that she has kind of like borrows from some anime that I appreciate a lot. You know, I think that Evangelion's probably a pretty obvious reference to some of the things that I like to talk about with Spiral's lore, because kind of this whole thing relies on like this narrative of like her having an emotional connection to the machine that she's in. It's something that is like not just personal to her, but is a program with multiple candidates, that type of thing. And what ended up happening is that the bond between her and this program became so exceptional that they formed a literal friendship. And they basically just decide to be gay and do crime together eventually, because the AI said, hey, this kind of sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Do you like doing this? And she said, no, this sucks. This society sucks. It's kind of ruined my life. I'm just kind of making ends meet here and doing my best. And so the AI was like, want to do the fusion dance? And she goes, beg your pardon? I said, want to do the fusion dance? I don't know if this is a thing that can happen, but we could try. And so they did. About a month worth of sci-fi horror ensues after that. I'm actually working on a series of analog horror content based around this specific moment in her lore, involving this merge between the organic and the artificial. And it's going to take a while for me to be able to get it to where I want to be, because I'm having to learn things as I go. One of the things that I'm working on now is I'm trying to learn how to do stuff in Blender, so that I can make video content for it, as well as like audio content. So I'll explore that more in the future, but that's kind of where all the crux of this comes from. After that, all hell breaks loose. She's basically listed as like a planetary threat by the powers that be. And so she does the only smart thing that she can do for herself at this point and bails. She gets the fuck out. Thankfully for her, the same company that she was working for was also working on that planet's first and emergent form of FTL tech. And so she stole that and left. And the rest, I kind of want to save for my re-debut, because I have a lot of effort that I want to put into it, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to show other people. And that's just kind of where she came from and where she is now. There's a lot. Like I said before. If I were to go over all of it, I'd be here all damn day.
Many, many pages of lore.
Oh god, so much. Oh god, so much. And honestly, like, the way I present Spiral on stream now is kind of like after all of that is said and done. Because I never really started out doing like in-character streams. I will do that in the future for fun. But kind of the idea that I had behind her streams is that like This is her after she's done all the things she has to do. She's resolved as many of her conflicts as she can, and now she's just doing streaming because it's funny and fun. And sometimes she does it up in space, and it makes NASA angry. And she thinks that's funny. Spiral has a very adversarial relationship with the U.S. government.
Oh, I would imagine so.
Just don't ask about the moon, and don't ask NASA about the moon. It gives them a lot of headaches.
What if I want to know about the moon now?
Put it this way: it's a good thing that we can only see the one half of it. The other half don't look so good.
Oh, I see. So the orbit is just an illusion created by mankind's visual representation.
Maybe something like that. Maybe something like that. Maybe Spiral did a little fucky wucky and smashed a thing into a thing. We'll see.
Okay.
The thing that I kind of wanted like touch on that's like related to her lore wise that I also think is really fun kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier with other characters. I will say this. I will say this because I think this is a fun way to drum up curiosity. Spiral is a type of artificial being that I think is unique enough to be designated as its own thing. So I've taken to starting to call her a cell, which is an acronym for collective energy life form. A very unique sort of merging of the organic and artificial that combines the technology that is making up her current structure and powers her, because essentially she has a form of like miniature fusion reactor inside herself, with the latent supernatural energies that come from her own soul. And you might ask yourself, well, does that mean that she has a soul inside that body? And the answer is kinda. It's there, but it's not here, if that makes sense. And then the other thing that I'll say related to that is she's not the only one of her kind that exists.
Okay.
There is more than one, and it has a lot to do with her own mistakes and her and the AI that she merged with having bouts of doubt, hubris, and not really understanding the scope of what it is they've become. I used to market myself as the space magic VTuber for a reason, because it's more than just sci-fi jargon. I would say that I compare Spiral more to like something more fantastical, closer to Star Wars than Star Trek, if that makes sense. Because that's kind of like where I like to do a lot of my plot writing. Also, admittedly, and this is not a pun. I'm just being genuine. I'm a space cadet. Like, remembering the specifics of like all of the different sci-fi elements that I wish to blend can be challenging sometimes, and sometimes I find it kind of more creatively liberating to just handwave stuff or come up with explanations that are plausible enough. And so it's going to be like a combination of things as I talk about this stuff more in the future, and I'm really excited to share it with everyone. I wish that I could share more now, but admittedly, all of this is pretty much just locked away in various scripts and other notes and writings that I've been noting down on top of like the beginnings and bare bones of audio-visual projects that I've been putting together. It is a slow burn, but at least for me on a creative level, the payoff is going to be 1000% worth it.
Oh, yeah. And when that day comes, the big unlock of the chest, and we're ready to receive the gift.
Exactly. One thing I can talk about a little bit is Spiral's skill set. I could talk about her power list, because that's something I've actually been working on recently. Yes,
I want to know that, and I want to ask all of the important questions, like, how many nanomachines are you comprised of? Like, how many? Is it millions? Is there billions?
Literally every part of her body is a nanite. It's just sometimes they come together to form alloys and composite materials that allow her to do things like become more resilient, sort of up armor herself. She can even alter the density of her body itself to become lighter or heavier for specific things. Spiral's sort of like default muscle strength is such that in order for her to fight like normal unarmored humans without like just outright killing them, she literally has to soften her legs and basically turn them to a sort of like semi-rubberized material in order to not just like instantly kill whoever she's dealing with. It's consider it a blessing. Consider it a blessing. I will not call it non-lethal. It is less lethal, but consider it a blessing. And so a lot of it is just based on like this sort of like repeating power cycle that she has. She can pretty much like disperse portions of the nanites that she carries in her body at will. Most of the time it comes out of her ears. That's why they're so big and that they look like big vents. But it can come from other sources. One thing that I have that I could show you, and I actually drew this myself, I'm really proud of it, is a little creature that she sometimes uses for this sort of thing.
The ear cannons.
The big ear cannons. Speaking of cannons, she does have one, but it's on her arm instead of her ears.
I was gonna say, what's that one Pokemon that they released? The Dragapult? It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I love Dragapult. This is an old sketch that I want to add more onto over time. But this is a sketch for a little creature that initially started out as a stream avatar idea for like chat, but has sort of like grown into its own thing in her lore. And it's a little robot. It's called a Kitbit. Basically just a little robot that kind of looks like her helmet. That is capable of floating around and dispersing nanites at will. It's an extension of her, although sometimes they're given personality. It is functionally her, talking to her own network. It's not really its own separate thing, and there can be multiple of them. They can be used for all sorts of applications. They can be used for forward observation. They can be used for analysis. They can be used for rescue operations. One thing that I really liked about the design is that theoretically the nanites could be used for anything. They could be used offensively, but you could also, use them to save people. Stop a building from collapsing, that type of thing.
This is very important. Here we go. We'll put this right up here. I think
this is very important. Very important. And so, like, the applications are like theoretically limitless. It's pretty much just based on her own creativity, with a limit of her psyche. That's one of the things that I really want to illustrate in the future is the degree of like anguish and trauma Spiral put herself through becoming a machine organism. And she's still not used to it. Her old biological processes that she no longer needs are not relevant to her anymore, but they still affect her mind. So, for example, like if she were to go underwater, she has to fight the psychological urge to take a breath and try not to drown because she doesn't need to breathe anymore, but she still has that process going on in her brain. And similarly, her power level scales extremely high, but her own conceptions of herself and how she needs to conceptualize her own abilities limits like how high that can scale. So like, for example, you got this Kitbit here, which is really cute and all, right? She doesn't need to do that. She could just send out the Grey Wash swarm and fucking eat a planet or whatever. But she doesn't want to do that. Nor can she even like mentally conceptualize how that would even work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like her own skill set is limited by her own mind and what she can think of and what she can come up with. And so a lot of her abilities have to do with making use of her own natural speed, strength, and agility, coming up with creative weapon designs that are both based on things that she likes, but also based on technology that she's familiar with, which is why she has things like this robot. I don't have art of it yet, unfortunately, but she does have a couple of different weapons that she likes to use, most notably an arm cannon that literally forms from her suit like sleeve. It is essentially like an extension of it, because everything that she is that you see right now is her. Those clothes are nanites too. They're not just clothes. She didn't just make those up. They might be like alloyed together in a way that makes them more of like a material than a machine at the moment, but at a moment's notice they could change into whatever they needed to.
Mm-hmm. So you put your little hand into your sleevey, and it's now a cannon.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. It even has little ears on it.
Oh my goodness, that is adorable.
Yeah, they rotate inward to act as front posts so she can aim.
Oh, okay. So like your own variant of iron sights.
Yeah, exactly. Very
nano sights.
Yeah. But like in a vague sense, because I would her arm cannon is not too dissimilar from the likes of Mega Man and Samus and all that. So it's very much like large scale projectiles that really only need to be vaguely aimed more than precisely aimed. You're not going to see sniping action very often from her. So those are kind of like some of the main skill set. And then I have a couple of other things that I've been toying around with. So one idea that I had that I really liked is the idea of giving her sort of like fine control over things like plasma and lightning, because she is powered by nuclear fusion. She has a lot of heat and energy going through her body at any given time, especially if she's like rearranging stuff on the molecular level, like turning inanimate objects into weapons for herself to use, or using things around her in the environment to prepare her body and stuff like that. All of that, like scientifically speaking, requires an enormous amount of energy to do, like way more than anyone could theoretically harness on the fly. And all of that heat gets internalized into her body, and the only way that she can make use of it after that is to shoot it at people, hence the arm cannon.
Okay.
So she's literally the type of fighter that the longer you fight against her, the less likely you are going to win, because she's just going to keep getting stronger. And the explosions are going to get bigger, and the scale at which she can affect things will get larger.
Interesting. Not that I would do it, because I'm not a born fighter. I'm a little bit of like that rogue style. You're just Goku.
Yeah. The Goku comparisons are fair. They're very fair. They're very fair. I did watch a lot of DBZ growing up.
What I'm hearing is that like sneak attack potentially is like one of the easiest ways to get a head start or like end the fight before it begins.
That's pretty much what you want to go for. Yeah, is like take her out early and quick. The trouble with that is that Spiral is a smart cookie, and her space magic has kind of given her a distinct advantage. I call her a localized nanite swarm, but localized is a very loose term, because although she tends to only inhabit one corporeal form at a time, there are pockets of her nanites, of her composition scattered all over Earth. And so if she gets iced, if someone like, I don't know, takes an orbital cannon to her or something, or if she gets like blown up and just all those nanites are gone, she can just respawn.
You have the contingency active at all times.
It sucks. She hates it because it literally feels like dying to her. And so it causes genuine mental anguish every time it happens, but it is something she's capable of doing. It's the grand backup plan, which is part of why she's so darn annoying to deal with on the basis of like long-term conflict, because you might win the fight, but you're gonna win barely, and eventually she's gonna be back and she's gonna be very upset.
Yeah, and then at that point, just recharge and ready to go, like the heat has built already.
Yeah, exactly. And that's on top of like all the other things that she's capable of that I want to showcase in the future. Spiral has like a melee weapon that she uses, which is basically just like kind of like those like Tetsubo clubs that they used to use in like feudal Japan. It's basically one of those, but it's made out of like a ferrofluid type of material that can change its composition. So it can go from like just a big solid bat to like this horrible spiked abomination, basically instantaneously. And because it's made out of her, she connects it to her actual like physical body using a tether. And she uses it to swing it around in wide arcs, or she's even been known to propel herself with it, basically just like a giant projectile. Have you ever heard of what do they call them? That kinetic weapon thing that the U.S. government was trying to make at one point. The kinetic bombardment thing where they're basically going to shoot a big tungsten rod from space.
Yeah, the tungsten rod. I don't know what they're called. I thought it was just the tungstens, but that was the plot of a Call of Duty game.
That it was. Think like that, but like on like a sort of like portable scale. She can just sort of fling herself around as a projectile. And because it's directly tethered to her body, whenever she's actually physically holding the weapon, you know how like when you hit something with like a bat, especially like a metal one, it like reverberates and you can feel it throughout your whole body?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that, but she uses those reverberations and amplifies them out of these little speakers that are coming out of her shoulders.
Okay.
So not only is she like smacking people around, but she's also like attacking them sonically every single time she hits someone. I'm very proud to say that Spiral could easily 1v1 Omni-Man in a fight.
Oh no, we can't say that. The power scalers are gonna show up.
No, I'm telling you right now, I don't care what anybody says, she would body his ass. Like, I don't want to get into it too deep because this is technically Invincible spoilers, but like sonic attacks are a smart thing to do. Mm-hmm. Against somebody like that whose power scaling relies purely on like physical strength and prowess. And so combining that with her unrelenting nature, her very unorthodox fighting style, because it's not really based in anything martial, it's just I swing, I jump, I flip around, I shoot you, weird shit happens with the nanites that you don't expect, that type of thing. It's really hard to win against her if you're not either familiar with what she does or you're not able to adapt to unpredictable situations. Mm-hmm. And I think that's her biggest strength as a combatant and why she's so good at what she does and how she managed to escape her home planet, leaving a trail of bodies behind her and survive.
One of the Powerpuff Girls could handle Omni-Man. I've never seen
100%.
the show, but I would assume yes, because the Powerpuff Girls are very OP.
They really are. Like, the movie does the biggest example of like how strong the Powerpuff Girls are. Like, just everything they do in the movie will just show you like why, honestly, like it's a good thing that Professor Utonium is such a good dad, because otherwise they should be like locked up in like an SCP containment facility or something, because they are scary.
Designation Keter or something like that. I don't know if there's a higher variant of Keter. I think they have one more after that, but
it kind of depends. Like the higher tier ones are mostly for like fiction writing, for like silly stuff, like stuff that's like fun to think about but isn't taken as seriously. So it kind of just depends. I know they have writing contests sometimes for like big SCP threats. But yeah, it just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the crux of all that, and good golly, the moment that I get art of this, I will be sure to share it with everyone and scream it on the mountaintops because it's going to be the coolest thing ever. But Spiral has a mech form.
Ooh. Based off of the mech that she piloted?
Yeah, with some adjustments. With some adjustments and some considerations for how she is now. Because the mechs that she used to pilot were much more analog, much more like you're in the seat of a vehicle. Whereas this one is much more kind of like... she's like mentally and physically connected to the machine itself. It doesn't become her. She doesn't just, get huge and turn into the mech, because she can't conceptualize something like that. She still has to conceptualize it as like a thing that she climbs into in order for it to actually work for her. But it's much more of a like one-to-one connection, if that makes sense.
Okay. What's it called in that movie? With the kaijus, something drift.
Pacific Rim.
Yeah, the Pacific Rim. What do they call that? That mix? The
Jaegers.
Drift compatible. The drift compatible.
Drift compatibility. Yeah, drift compatibility. Yeah, exactly. She has to form that like mental connection, and because it's made out of her, it's really easy to do.
Oh yeah.
That will come into play eventually in the future. It even has its own name, which is a double entendre that I'm sure some of you will get and others won't. It's called Hypergal EXE. Or Hypergalaxy.
I get the Gal EXE because that is both a play on words and, it's Galaxy. But the Hyper, is that any different from what you have now?
Hypergalaxies, as far as I'm aware, with like my sort of like, I would call it, I guess, like, I'm far from an expert on astronomy and astronomic objects and things like that, but I definitely do a fair bit of research, and use it as creative inspiration. And a hypergalaxy is literally just a fucking huge galaxy, just a really, really big one. So it's
the
that
Mac Galaxy.
yeah, it's that, and also other things that I don't think Big Daddy Twitch would like me to talk about.
Oh, I see. I see. That is fair. That would be for a different character in this same suite and bar.
yeah, exactly. And so that'll be really fun when it comes into play. Suffice to say, she has a lot of stuff in her tool belt, in her Batman tool belt, and visualizing that and showing it to other people is going to be my like 5-year struggle.
Oh,
because
goodness,
it's
yeah.
going to take so much work. I have so many ideas in place for this. One of my big aspirations that I don't know if this will be exactly how things come about in the future, but one thing that I've really been wanting to pursue is possibly getting some sort of like visual media created based around her and her escapades, whether it's like in the form of something static like a webcomic, or maybe something more substantial like animations and other visual media and things along those lines. But in order for me to do that, I either have to learn how to do a lot of things that I don't know how to do right now, or work really, really hard and get a group of people together who are willing to help me make that a real thing. And that's going to take a long time. But it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm very much looking forward to doing it. And in the meantime, all the things that I'm going to show off on stream in the coming year are going to be just like snippets of the ideas that I want to show, the things that I can make in the here and now that will hopefully illustrate all of the insano shit that I've been writing for the past few months.
Yes, I'm very excited to see all of it come together, even if it is 5 years from now. I want to be one of the first people there that gets to witness it happen.
That's very sweet. Thank you. I'm excited for it. I do think one thing that I'm going to try and put together myself in the next couple of years is I've been kind of debating on pursuing game development as a hobby. And so I've been thinking a lot about like what types of games I like to develop and where that would fit in with her as a character. And so far I have landed on some fashion of shoot 'em up, of some fashion of bullet hell type of game, because I think that would really allow me to showcase like the kind of power scaling that I think Spiral deserves to have. And also just because I'm passionate for the genre. I stopped playing a lot of bullet hell games for a while, but it used to be one of the things I grew up on. I know this is a bit of an old fart example, but Galaga was one of the first games I ever played as a kid. I remember the first time I played it at an old Pizza Hut. It was the machine tucked into the corner, and I spent like $2 worth of quarters on it. And ever since then, and as I've like grown and learned about all the different games of the genre and how it's progressed as a medium, it's something that I find fascinating, but also like approachable conceptually. As like something that I could see myself making, that I could put a lot of effort in personally without becoming like massively overwhelmed with the process of it.
Yeah. Are you going to be the fixation, the main character of this shmup, or are you going to be an enemy or a boss in this shmup?
I haven't decided, because technically, as far as Spiral's lore goes, in the first like sort of like prequel part of her stuff, the stuff that talks about where she came from, and then in the sort of first act of like her being on Earth, she is very much the villain. She is not the protagonist. The protagonist is a character that I'm still working on, that I am really wanting to put a lot of thought into before I talk about it. But she is very much the villain. She is very much an enigmatic threat that is constantly causing problems. But over time, through the events of that first act, she will slowly morph into the proper protagonist that she's meant to be. Not really in like a heroic sense, but I would say like at best in like an anti-hero kind of sense. She's not the type of person to give all of herself to save an entire planet, but she's also not the type of person at least at heart, to want to cause wanton suffering to lots of people. She mostly just wants to survive and be left alone. And sort of what's going to happen in that storyline is her coming to terms with that, but also coming to terms with the notion that she has the ability to affect mass change in a way that she couldn't before on her old planet, because she wanted to, but she couldn't. That's why she did this to begin with. It's just doing that kicked off an entire series of events where she was constantly fighting for her life. So it very much made her jaded and very much like warped her expectations of people around her. And so for that game, I personally see her as being like in the protagonist role for the majority of it, just because I think mechanically speaking, that would be really fun. But there definitely is a possibility that she might not be.
I'm just imagining, like, as a boss, your patterns are like frame perfect everything.
Exactly. Well, I am a bit of a Toho enjoyer, so that type of thing is definitely not out of my wheelhouse, although I don't think I will be as masochistic as the Toho games are. I want my games to be fun and challenging, but also approachable and accessible. I think accessibility is a major component of what makes a video game good for everyone. And I think that no genre should be safe from that. And yes, Dark Souls players, that does mean that I think that Dark Souls should have accessibility options built into it. Don't at me. I've played all the games. I don't want to fucking hear it.
No, you make a fair point. It should be easier to enjoy the lore of the game than it is to get through it in one piece and then you don't know what's happening still.
Yeah, exactly. And how the hell am I supposed to show everyone all my cool lore about all this shit that I'm doing if they can't get past stage 1 because the bullet patterns are too hard? Like, what am I doing at that point?
You make a fair point.
Yeah, and so, like, I definitely think that could be a possibility. But also keep in mind, as I said before, Spiral's not the only cell out in the universe. There could be others. And they might possibly be the subject of those bosses that we're talking about.
Ooh. Okay.
But yeah, I really like her skill set, and I think that it would blend really well with the genre, especially with some of the like new things that I see from both, like, you know, sequels to some of the games we know and love, like all the Toho games, but also like there's a lot of indie shmups that are really, really cool and unique that I've been seeing recently that I want to dive into more. And also games that are like adjacent to the genres. Like, I'm a big enjoyer of like Vampire Survivors and that genre of game. And so I think that those types of elements have been blended together in some pretty unique ways from indie games recently. So I basically am just at the point now where I've been calling it doing my homework, where I've just been like trying to find games that I think are like emblematic of the type of thing I want to do. And then I play them. And then I figure out what I like, and I figure out what I don't like. So for me, right now, that is diving into the bowels of old Toho games. I am currently playing Toho 6 and suffering, but loving it because it's hard, but in a really fun way.
I will not be saying the T word on stream because everyone makes fun of me for how I pronounce the name of the game.
I mean, do whatever you like. If you want to pronounce it a silly way, pronounce it a silly way.
No, everyone gets mad at me. They all make fun of me. I'll say it Tauhu all I want. That's how I've seen it. That's how I've always pronounced it when I was a baby.
To be fair, it took me a while too. Like, my first exposure to it was when one of my friends in high school, I was at like a sort of like sleep-in event that one of our like church groups was putting on, and my friend had this laptop with a bunch of games on it, and he was asked a couple people like, hey, you guys ever played Toho before? And I'm like, what's Toho? I think I know about that. That's the one with all the anime girls, right? And he's like, yeah, because I'd seen the art and stuff before, but I had no idea what the games were like. And so he showed me Toho 7, and he's one of those dudes that can like one clear on Lunatic on the highest difficulty. So I'm just watching him play this, and I'm just like, what the hell is happening? How are you not getting killed right now? And he's like, oh, that little dot in the middle of my sprite is actually my hitbox. And then I just went, fucking what? Excuse me? What do you mean? What do you mean that's your hitbox? What, this ain't Galaga? Where's my spare ship? What the fuck's happening? Oh my god. But so yeah, that was kind of like my start into this specific series, and I would not say it is my favorite shmup series by a long shot, but I appreciate how much passion has been put into it over the years, especially since most of it's just been by one dude who's basically just making these as he feels like it and has been doing it for almost 30 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And how passionate the community has gotten behind it in terms of like fan works and art and all the cool stuff that they've done, all the fan translations, because the creator infamously does not want official translations for any of his stuff. He wants fans to do it because he thinks they'll do a better job. And by and large, I would say he's probably right. It's fascinating to see. And I'm happy that I'm finally taking like a proper look at some of the games in the series, on top of all the other stuff that I'm looking into. Some other games that I've been looking into recently, I own the game Ikaruga on Steam. I personally think that the Steam release of it is not like great because it has some accessibility features missing from other ports of the game. And that's a really fun one. It's got this like polarity switching mechanic that maybe people who haven't played shmups might be more familiar with if you've played like Nier Automata, because it kind of like aped that mechanic in like a small way for certain sections. And then I have a few others on my wish list that I've been meaning to get to yet, but I haven't purchased because I'm trying to focus on one game at a time, so that way I can really figure out what I like on a mechanical level. I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give, that has been given to me when it comes to game development, comes from my friend Rocco Farend, who is also a streamer and VTuber. Big shout outs to them. They are a person I respect and love and admire a bunch. And what they told me was that if you're just starting out in game development, focus on like the mechanics that are fun to you and like the sort of base level concepts like that, and work on those. Make a thing that does those, but doesn't have all the like other stuff you want to throw on top of it. It doesn't have like the story. It doesn't have art assets. Like just make a thing that is the part that is fun, so that you can learn how to make that as fun as possible and then start building around that. And I think that's incredibly good advice. And so I'm trying to embody that by just playing the games that I like and figuring out precisely what is good about them so that I can add that to my pile of notes and I can see how I can fit that into all the stuff that I want to do with Spiral, or just anything in general. I might not even make a shmup that's based around Spiral to start out with. I might make something simpler that's just like an expression of the ideas that I like.
The baseline there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps up my main questions for you today. But as we move on to the break, before we head into it, I do have a segment, a little silly segment that I like to do called... Is it going to pop up? It's not going to pop up. It doesn't like to read my voice. Hypothetical, theoretical, in which I ask a bullshit question, and you get to answer it in any way you see fit. And this question recently just dropped by Chance Nizumi during a random VC talk that we were having. Hypothetically, theoretically, how much dark chocolate would I need to consume so that I die from lead poisoning? Now, bear in mind, we did find the answer, but I wanna hear your opinion.
Oh god. Well, yeah, because there's like a legally allowed limit of like all sorts of things in food products, and lead is definitely one of those. I'm gonna say like a pallet's worth, like a wooden pallet's worth, like a whole like half stack of like a grocery store pallet of just nothing but dark chocolate, like as close as you can get to just straight cacao as possible.
So, would you believe me if I told you that I believe it is around 45 whole dark chocolate bars would be enough of a lethal dose to kill you?
45?
45.
The LD50 on chocolate with lead in it is 45. Oh my god.
Because dark chocolate does have a higher lead content than milk chocolate does, because of the way that they process it. And technically, you know, lead doesn't kill you. It's not like a poison that like will instantly like a cyanide type thing. It is a prolonged exposure. But eating 45 is like almost guaranteed to give you all of the effects of lead poisoning, and if you continue from that point on, it will kill you.
Oh my god, that's horrible. I mean, thank fuck that I can never bring myself to eat more than like one chocolate bar in a sitting, if that. Usually when I eat chocolate these days, I like break it in half.
Oh yeah, actual
Especially
death by chocolate.
Yeah, especially since chocolate is like dark chocolate in particular is so flavorful that like you don't want to eat that much of it. You enjoy it, you savor it. Like I get it if someone's gonna like down a Hershey bar in one sitting. Like it's Hershey bar. It's like the chocolate equivalent of potato chips. But like if I'm buying like a nice bar of like Tony's Chocolonely from the store or something like that, something that's like good, high quality, fair trade. For one thing, and as free from like the moral complications of like chocolate as possible, I'm there to enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
And I think that pretty much everyone's like that. So gosh, I can't even imagine eating 45 bars.
See, we don't even consider factors like how would your stomach handle 45 chocolate bars? How would your body, like after like the fourth or fifth bar, it's like starting to really dislike the bitter taste, and now it wants to expel the bitter taste, and you will start rejecting it because it isn't pleasant anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I'm not like the biggest fan of bitter. I think that coffee and chocolate are probably one of the handful of ways I can actually accept bitter flavors and be fine with them, because in most other fashions, I despise bitter flavor. I'm a sour person. I'm a sour sweet person more often than not. Whenever I'm thinking about things like food and drinks and stuff like that. So I can't even imagine eating that much chocolate in one sitting. Holy crap.
We overlook everything else but the lethal limit of lead in order to figure out, like, test the full, like, what it would take, the insinuations, like the amount of radiation inside of bananas is like it's like 55,000 bananas would kill you, but we have to overlook the fact that it would explode your stomach if they all were in there at the same time.
I mean, if you want a lethal dose of radiation that bad, you can just look into my ears for a second. That's where all the radiation comes out.
Oh, wonderful.
So if you look closely.
Poor Head Pat Hand is he's doing his best, but he's now irradiated.
It's great. Look, on my streams, the Head Pat Hand is green for a reason. It's not just for cute coloring. It's because long-term exposure is bad for you.
Get away from her.
If you look inside my ears and you look closely enough, you'll see a little warning label that says, "Warning, do not stare directly into aperture."
I mean, nothing to say of like the heat that's expelled and the cannon that's there.
If it helps at all, the ears aren't really used to shoot like energy projectiles. The way they work is kind of like accidental. Spiral sneezed really hard one day and figured out that she can rapidly expel jets of hot like air from her ears in a way that's kind of similar to like the way that jet aircraft use like thrust vectoring nozzles. So she can use them to reposition herself mid-air in small bursts, but it's unwieldy, doesn't always work properly, and if she's not really in the zone, sometimes she has to force herself to sneeze in order for it to work.
I love that. Oh my god.
Yeah, it just happened by accident once, she's just on like the subway or whatever, just big chillin'. She sneezes and all of a sudden she's flinging 3 people onto the floor.
The power level held with inside of you, not even like power level in terms of like a number, just the level of your power is intense.
And it's something that she's had to reckon with and reconcile for herself. I think one of the key themes behind Spiral's lore is her coming to grips with the nature of her being, and how although she will never be a regular person again, she will never be just a person living their life. She can make use of the situation that she's in to do a lot of genuine good to the people around her. She just has to learn to control it, and she has to learn to be her best self in the process.
Okay. Well, I think that it is a great point for us to go and run and take a really quick break. Get some rest in, walk around, grab some water. And in that meantime, if anybody has any questions for Spiral, hold on to them. Don't ask them right away. We don't want them to get lost in chat in case people start like really scrolling. So yeah, we will be back in about 5 minutes. So
Okie dokie. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and get my coffee.
yeah, we'll see you in just a moment. Hang tight. All right, everybody, we are back. Me as a Fugitech and, well, Spiral as sus.
What do you mean? I didn't do anything. I'm just sitting here. Like, I didn't. What are you talking about?
This is your natural state. This is your resting form.
It's a comfy form. It's a comfy form. It's good. Like, look, I can survive in a vacuum. Okay, I can have my face in a vacuum and be fine, but it's not comfortable. So having like a suit with protection against that, it's nice. Like, I still enjoy creature comforts.
Munga.
Mung.
Also, like, conceptually, you are massive right now. Like, the size at which I have you set is huge. And I don't know, that's kind of terrifying.
It's a really big PNG. This PNG was drawn by my friend Rocco. And I'm incredibly grateful for it. It was just kind of like a shitposty idea that they had, and after I saw it, I was like, oh god, can you please make a version with the heart emoji on it? I'm gonna use this for stream. I have to.
All right, well, due to previous people who have been on stream before, I have removed all ventilation in this room, so I will not be able to check and see if you are the imposter. But it's okay. I'm
the real deal.
Yeah, I'll have faith that you are the real Spiral Galaxy. All right, Chams decided to get all of their questions out immediately. So let's read the first of which. How fluffy is the tail?
As fluffy as you want it to be. When Spiral's cuddling, it is as soft as you would expect from a fox's tail. It can even get softer than that if that's something that you're really into, almost plush. But when Spiral is fighting, it is razor sharp. She can do the Sonic spin dash and smack into people with it if she really wants to.
Ooh, I like that. It does raise a question in my brain, because if every part of your being is able to reassemble at your own personal will, right? It's constantly moving and shifting. Anything that is hard, even without the changing of how it like the material, can become soft with just the movement away from the body at the precise moment that it's like felt. That's pretty cool. I like that as a concept.
Yeah. One way I like illustrating this is if you were to theoretically like throw, take like a table in a room and like kick it at Spiral so it slides towards her. She could dodge it, she could hit the table, or she could just run at the table, split in half, carry the momentum across the table, and then reconnect her two halves.
Ooh, yeah.
Shortest distance between 2 points and all that.
Like, as long as there was no impossibly moving barrier, like if it was the table, like you said, it would look as though you phased straight through it.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, all right.
There are some limitations to it because, physical matter has a degree of time that's necessary in order for it to convert to one substance or another, or to change factors such as like hardness or resilience and things like that. So like if you're fast enough and can catch Spiral off guard, like there are ways to work around her abilities, but it is only temporary. And the more she recognizes that you're doing that, the more pissed off she's going to get. And that's not good for you.
Yeah, pissed off equals hotter, and then hotter equals more cannon fodder.
Yeah, exactly.
Chet's also wants to know how many, or I guess in this case, how long of ear scritches is a lethal dose of radiation?
As much as I like to joke about it, and as much as people like to make fun of me for it, Spiral does close her ear vents when people are being close to her and giving her the scritches, so she doesn't lethally dose people with radiation.
Okay, so it's a defense mechanism. I knew you were going to say that, Chance. Damn. It should have been me. And then, finally, when designing Spiral, what was the reasoning behind the color palette?
I am an agender person, and so I wanted my character to wear that on her sleeve as literally as possible. Thankfully, I had help from my friend and an incredibly talented artist, Blue Wisp, on refining the color palette, making it something that's more agreeable to the eyes. So instead of like having lots of like very very strong black colors, it's more of like dark grays and similar neutral tones. And him and I both kind of decided that we needed to throw an additional color into the palette. And initially, the toss up was between like a sort of like cyanish kind of blue or the kinds of purples that you see on Spiral's current design. And it's kind of funny because when I go back and I look at a lot of like the fictional characters that I used to enjoy a lot in media, green and purple comes up a lot in the design. So put it this way, Piccolo's my favorite DBZ character.
Yeah. Let's go.
fucking love Piccolo so much. One of my first like formative memories of seeing anything in media is seeing just a shot of like Piccolo doing his trademark stance with his arms crossed, and he's got the weighted gear on, so he's got like the fucking turban and everything. And I just little Spiral thought that was the coolest fucking thing ever.
Because it is. He is probably one of the most underrated characters in the show.
Oh god, yeah.
Because everyone else kind of dwarfs him. Like, he doesn't get a lot of screen time, unfortunately.
He's the best, and he's also a better dad for Gohan than Goku will ever be, and Goku knows it! Goku knows it! He's okay with it! It's actually really wholesome.
Chance is immediately on the marry me. We've skipped right past courting, and we're straight to the marriage proposal.
Oh wow, well, I'm not one to play games, so, I mean...
PK wants to know, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, tough decision. I can't remember if it's Ben or Jerry, but one of the two dudes behind Ben and Jerry's, he says that, like, his sense of taste and smell is kind of, like, shot a little bit. So the reason why Ben and Jerry's is so chunky and full of stuff is because he likes the change to texture. That's one of the nice things that he likes about ice cream. And I'm kind of the same way, is like really any flavor of ice cream that has chunks of stuff in it, preferably soft stuff. So things like cookie dough, strawberry cheesecake, cookies and cream that has like actual cookie bits in it, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard for me to pick a favorite flavor of ice cream because ice cream is one of my favorite foods to eat. So if I had to pick anything, like gun to my head, I'd probably say like a cheesecake flavor, just because I also adore cheesecake, and having it in ice cream form is lovely, especially if it has the like graham cracker, like little lines of like graham cracker filling in it and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Now you're making me want to go to the store and grab like just a Rocky Road, or like the like you said, the cookie dough flavor. That is quite possibly one of my favorite chunky flavors, if I had to put a word to it.
Oh yeah, we have what's left of like a quart of chunky ice cream in the freezer right now. That's like brownie bits and cookie dough, and I am probably going to crack that open later and finish it off, because now I'm also getting hungry for it.
Yes, it is around that time.
It's true.
Hackblade wants to know, has Spiral ever done something just purely despite somebody or an entire group?
Oh yeah, 100%. When Spiral got to Earth, the first people to get on her ass and bother her were the US government and all of their sort of like special operations branches, you know, CIA, other types of stuff, the glowies as some people refer them to. And she was kind of already sick of hyper-capitalist nonsense, so when she saw everything that they were getting up to, she was just kind of like, fuck this and fuck all of you. So that's kind of where like the beginning of her story arc comes from, is just the distinctly adversarial relationship she has with one of the most prominent superpowers on Earth, and the various ways that she constantly fucks with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there have been moments where she's literally let herself get into ambush situations just to prove how quickly she can demolish an entire group of like tanks.
Mm-hmm.
For example.
I was also gonna say that you like your existence alone is in spite because you were not meant to be taking all of that with you.
Yeah, literally, exactly. And that's kind of the whole thing, is that spite is a very powerful motivator for Spiral's background, and reconciling that with her genuine desire to want to affect positive change on the world around her is where a lot of her story comes into play, I feel. And I'm looking forward to exploring that narrative more in the future.
Yeah. Cammy wants to know, can you be a loose swarm like Zaktan from Bionicle? I hope I've said their name right. I've not seen Bionicle in a long time.
I think so. I think that's the right way to pronounce it. I'm not as familiar with Bionicle lore as some of my friends and partners are, but I am also a big Bionicle enjoyer. We love our bonkles. Yeah, absolutely. So, it's funny you mentioned that, because if you go into my streams, and I have a few channel commands that you can just type that don't cost anything, and one of them is an active camo command. It even has the noise from Halo and everything. That's not me turning invisible. That's me becoming a sort of like gaseous form that is so spread out that I'm not really taking up like a body anymore.
Mhm.
It's just more like dispersed in the air. Part of the thing with Spiral is she doesn't really like to do that, because it feels so very depersonalizing for her, and it like kind of breaks her brain a little bit.
Mhm.
Like, Spiral has that ability. Whether or not she uses it is kind of dependent on her mental state, and whether or not she feels like she can handle herself, because things can easily get very quickly out of hand.
Mhm. I believe that is sort of what Mano touched on earlier. I didn't read it out loud. Let's see if I can find it up here. The concept of a machine existence, or like a sapient machine going a little crazy, or like having a moment of strange lack of humanity when it takes a deep breath and it doesn't have lungs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that like Spiral's internal composition is largely based on need. So if she's fighting, her internals are largely designed to facilitate increased power and resilience. She's not going to have other little bits in there for people to mess with. She's not going to have lungs for people to, affect negatively. She's not going to have like other internal organs other than maybe like some internal mechanisms that are designed to sort of create the same effect for physical movements and exertion and things like that. She's not going to have things that people can exploit, at least not if she can help it.
Mhm.
And I mean, that also changes, like, based on need is a very nebulous term. Spiral's internal composition can change pretty much at will. Make of that what you will.
All right. Let's see. Brain stopped working for a moment. Ellie from Nova Swarm wants to know, do you live to eat or eat to live?
Live to eat. So Spiral doesn't need to eat. Canonically, she has no reason to eat. However, if she does eat, she can convert it into energy or into other resources. All food is made out of carbon in some fashion, so extra carbon can be used for many things. So she pretty much just eats for the fun of it. Spiral will happily devour an entire burger and enjoy it the same way anybody else would, but she doesn't have to. She is perfectly capable of just, throwing some nanites out and letting them, eat a cop car, for example. Cop cars are an essential part of Spiral's diet.
Oh yes, 100%. I was gonna say the burger imagery makes me think of Ramlethal Valentine and her love for burgers, and I want an image of Spiral just really enjoying a cheeseburger.
God, yes, you and me both. And also, I'm glad you brought up Ramlethal, because I'm not like a huge Guilty Gear enjoyer, but her design is definitely one of my favorites out of all the characters in that series.
Oh yes, 100%.
And I'm sure that comes as no surprise whatsoever.
Yeah, I could see it with the outfit and the color palette again, just a little bit.
Oh god, yeah, yep, 1000%.
Spiral with the Peter Parker finger lick. Oh my goodness. I was also thinking of the Germa like shy burger eat like where he's like hiding his face behind the burger.
Spiral would be the type of person to grab some food from to grab some fries from like the local place and go, oh, onion ring,
Oh my goodness.
onion ring, and then just devour it voraciously.
I also complete tangent to the other thing he says where it's like, oh, there's a little bird in here, then eat it.
Spiral tries really hard to not harm like animals and other natural objects, because one of the things she really appreciated about Earth when she got there is that most of its natural beauty, while it's definitely under siege, is still a little better preserved compared to where she came from. Her home planet is full of a lot of deserts and other barren environments. So that is definitely something that's kind of always been at the core of her being, is her respect for other animals. So she does have a little bit of a moral quandary whenever she bites into a burger, but it's just kind of like, it kind of is like a reflection of like how I feel about it. It's like I have a lot of mixed feelings on like consuming animal products in general, and I think as a person I feel like I should be doing better to like reconcile with that over time. But it's, you know, it's one of those things that's like a personal choice, and you just have to ask yourself, like, what's best for you? What can you do to make a positive impact? And is it even possible for you as a person to, like, you know, afford a vegetarian or vegan diet? Because that's one thing that people don't think about a lot, is the cost associated with something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and, you know, like, aside from the cost, well, it sort of fit in with that as well. You have to replace what you have decided to forego in a vegetarian diet, and if you can't do that properly, then you suffer, and it's the worst experience. I would know because I've tried it previously in the past, and it's not fun to feel exhausted and angry at the same time.
Oh God, yeah. I can only imagine, and that's kind of the thing, is that like I feel like eventually I might be able to reach a point where I can do that comfortably, and it'll help me feel better about my place in the world. But at the moment, I'm kind of in that quandary where it's like cost versus can I get the proper nutrients versus am I even like educated enough to know what I need to be grabbing. And I've learned a lot over the past year about that, actually, and so I'm looking forward to changing my diet up in the coming couple of years. I will have to, actually, because in the next year or so, I'm going to be moving in with a couple of partners and some friends, and one of my partners has a very limited diet due to a number of food allergies, and that's going to kind of be my opportunity to both help out by learning how to make meals that work within those constraints, but also in the process, those meals will become much healthier because they're based around more of a vegetarian diet for the most part. Yeah.
The one thing I learned really early on is you don't have to cold turkey it. Just take it slow, like slowly wean off of it so your body is acclimated to the change. So.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just going cold turkey and your body's all of a sudden like, wait, you mean we're not getting any of these nutrients anymore? You realize how stupid that is, right? Like, this is going to kill us.
Mm-hmm. I think if I was to settle on a diet that I could do, it would be pescatarian, like as far as I would go for that.
That makes sense. I like fish. Yeah,
fish are aplenty. We have many of them on the planet. I do not feel as bad consuming a fish than I do, you know, like a burger or something like that. So, all right. My big 3 questions for you to wrap up our stream here. First off, if you could ask the next interviewee anything, what would you like to ask them?
I think that this is a fun question. I gave it some thought, and I think that a question that I wish more people would ask, because it's kind of a good springboard into a lot of fun discussion, is what, in your opinion, is something that indie game developers will always be better at than AAA corporations? And I don't mean necessarily like the developers, like behind those corporations. I mean like at the decision-making level, at the sort of like structural level. or even just like aspects of game development itself, what do you think will always give indie developers the advantage in that regard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the idea. I know who we're interviewing with next. I won't tell anybody, of course, because I like to keep that a secret. I think that this person would love to go off on this question. So, okay.
Mhm.
Next question for you is, if you were a drink at the bar behind you, what would you pick? And what would your name be?
Well, I am not a big alcohol consumer. I do drink every now and again, but I'm pretty basic. I tend to stick to things that come out of a bottle, so things like and you sort of like enjoy on their own. So lots of like beers, wine sometimes. Although I'm very picky, I haven't really found a wine that I think I really appreciate. But I also haven't looked into it too much because wine gets expensive the more you look. And I'm not
Sorry, I should have mentioned. Sorry, chance bringing it up is it can be not alcoholic if you so choose.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. I would say that there would probably be a degree of alcohol in whatever drink that encompasses my being, because that kind of like, I don't know. I would think that that would be something that like a machine organism could enjoy to some extent in a way that might be a little more unique unto itself. You know, if Spyro really wanted to, she could give herself the biological capacity to become intoxicated for a while.
This is true.
I have never really explored this a little bit, other than just the occasional hee hee hoo hoo weed joke. But like, it is something that she could do, so I'd be okay with it being some kind of alcoholic beverage. So whatever it is, I think above all else, it would have to be colorful, definitely at least a little sweet, but also very much sour. It kind of has to feel like the experience kind of has to remind you of drinking battery acid a little bit. Just a little bit. Tasty battery acid, but battery acid nonetheless.
This is a drink I'm drinking right now.
This is something that I'm drinking. This will probably kill me, but it's not that bad. That's Spiral in a shell nut. Oh my god, what an abomination! Kind of cute though.
Yeah, I love it.
And if I had to put a name to it, I'd probably call it what Spiral's arm cannon is called. I'd call it the Kit Bomber.
That is a very good name. I can imagine it in like a shot form or like a set of shots.
Definitely. That would probably be the smartest way to consume a Spiral-based alcoholic drink.
Oh, yes.
Or even just a Spiral-based regular drink, minus the alcohol, to be honest. You never know, there might be a nanite or two in there.
Yeah, get it done and over with so you could be on with your day.
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, the last question I have for you is, who would you like to raid?
I think that we should raid Gate Snipe because it's been a while since I've talked to them, and they're playing Fallout 4, having a grand old time. And I want more people to have eyes on them in what they do. Although I know for a fact that people in your community are very familiar with them because I know that y'all hang out and are friends as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that they will be a perfect target for a raid.
They got that vault access, baby, that secret little stash.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I'm just kind of curious about Fallout 4 because I haven't played it since like it came out. So I don't really know like what the state of the game is in terms of like what mods have allowed it to become and you know like how people feel about it. So I not only do I want to raid Gate because of who they are, but also because I'm just kind of curious about what their opinion is on Fallout.
Fallout 4 came out.
It came out?
What?
Yeah, it came free with your Xbox.
Yeah, didn't you know?
Didn't you know?
All right, well, thank you, Spiral, for being a guest on my stream today and being such a lovely interviewee.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really excited when you asked me to be on your show, because I have seen a couple of the interviews that you've done, and I really like the stuff that you do on your channel. And I kind of feel the same way about it that I've said to like pinch before when I was invited to be on original soundtracking. I think that stuff like this is what pushes our medium forward. And
Oh,
I love seeing it.
100%.
I love seeing it from people. I love seeing it the way you like to do it because it's decidedly unique. It's very much like catered to you and what you like and how you choose to present yourself. And I'm just happy that I got to be a part of it. Also, I'm happy with how well my color palette matches with the palette of your stream background.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, all of these colors work well. Like, I have all of the hints of your colors in my design, so
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect.
yeah, when I was making the poster for it and setting up all the text and the way that I like to do it, I was like, wow, this is literally just like exactly how the scene was meant to be.
Yeah, right. It's wonderful when it works out like that. And it's a superficial thing, but I like being a kind of birds of a feather flock together. Whenever I see a streamer with a similar color palette, I always look at it and I go, whoa, you're on activation.
I need to check something here really fast. Do I have this? Yeah, okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that my command for the raid message was proper. Why did it work? Oh, there it is. That took a while to pop up. That is our raid message for today as we go and raid into Gate Snipe. As I'm setting that up, do you have any parting words of wisdom for us, Spiral?
Two things. One, be on the lookout for the stuff I make in the future. I am very much looking forward to showing it with all of you, and sharing it, and just being able to finally express all of the things that I've been brewing for such a long time. And I appreciate everyone being a part of my experience and my community alongside me, even though I've only done like a fraction of the things I want to do. And second thing, don't eat the nanites. Please don't eat the nanites. For the love of fuck, do not eat the nanites. I keep telling people not to do that, and they do it anyway.
You can't tell you what to do. I do what I want.
That's what they all say.
And finally, where can we find you next? Well, we have your channel, of course, but when are you going to be streaming next?
Tomorrow, I stream Warframe every Wednesday, or as many Wednesdays as I can fit in, barring sickness and stuff like that. And I always stream alongside my friend, Sergal, and fellow streamer Eric's. We've been doing that for a while now. It's kind of become like the cornerstone of my content on Twitch, is to stream Warframe every single Wednesday. And actually, starting tomorrow and ending on Friday, I'm going to be hosting an event as part of like the AI database and our clan in Warframe, Clan World Machine. We're doing a Warframe fashion show and sort of like showcase for our community. So if any of you are interested in that and you're not already a part of my Discord community, feel free to join up, even if it's just to take a look. And if you play Warframe, feel free to post your fashion in the thread that's in our Discord server. It's in the general chat. And we're going to start voting after stream tomorrow, because we do have a few categories that we're going to be doing, but it's purely just for fun. So the main purpose of it is to just let everybody enjoy what, in my opinion, is one of the best parts of Warframe, which is all of the very pretty and attractive robot-adjacent creatures that are in Warframe. So that's what I'm going to be getting up to this week. And other than that, my stream schedule is going to be Mondays and Wednesdays for the foreseeable future. So if you want to catch me, that would be the best place to do it. Usually in the evening, sometime between 4 and 6 p.m. Central US time.
Perfect. All right. I'm hitting that button. This Thursday, you can find Lulu playing some more To the Moon, hopefully finishing the game.
Oh, To the Moon.
Yeah, To the Moon. Such a I'm like weirdly sad. I'm scared and sad and happy all at the same time. And hopefully I can actually finish it if my package arrives on time for my phone. So we'll see. Other than that, have a great weekend, everybody. Let's give Gate a lot of love. And
wow.
Yeah, we sit in this screen. This is my favorite thing to do all the time, is hit the ending screen, but you could still hear all of us. So
Yeah, I love doing that. I love my ending screen so much, and I'm glad that others share in that because it's just I don't know, it's a nice capstone to everything going on.
Yeah, I just don't know how to end streams, to be honest. So
Does anyone really? Like honestly?
do I say bye? Do I go quiet? Do I?
I have like a little spiel that I say about keeping an eye on the stars and shit, but it's like half the time I have to get that out in like the last 5 seconds when the thing's counting down, and I have no idea what else to say, and maybe I should just hit the button.
Yeah, and if anybody's behind, then they miss it anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we'll see you all later. Have a great night.
Awawa, take care.